Here from Landry's Bicycles. I'm the technical director, and we're going to talk today about shifting. We'll talk about the major components of the shifting system. We'll review one shifting scenario that seems to give a lot of people trouble, and we'll debunk one of the myths that's floating around out there about shifting. Okay, the major components of the shift system are the derailleurs. So we have the front derailleur and the rear derailleur. The crank set with the chain rings. The chain rings or chain wheels are the individual gears that are on the crank set. The cassette, which is the group of 8 or 10 or whatever, however many gears you have attached to the rear wheel, and the chain. Now the purpose of shifting is to move the chain from the gear that it's on to a gear that it's next to. And it's achieved by the lever, and what's happening is the chain is being moved sideways and guided onto the next gear by the derailleur. That shifting works quite well, and most people find it to be very easy until they get into the middle of a hill and they're starting to go up a hill, and they're pedaling harder and harder and harder and trying to get into easier and easier gears, and at some point they need to change from a bigger gear in the front to a smaller gear in the front, and they shift the bike and nothing happens. Or they hear a lot of grinding and crunching, but it doesn't get any easier, and they come to a stop. The problem is that when you're pedaling, you are applying all your workload to the chain here, where it runs from the cassette to the chain ring. So this chain here, or this part of the chain, is being held taut by your legs. The chain down here has no tension on it whatsoever. And as you begin to go up a hill, most people will shift in the back, gradually getting into an easier and easier gear, and they find that to be very easy. But eventually they get to their easiest gear in the back and realize, okay, the hill keeps going and I need to get to an easier gear in the front, which involves going to a smaller gear. The problem is that this has been quite easy to do. You're now asking this little derailleur here to move the chain sideways that you're holding taut with your legs to keep yourself going up the hill. And this is not stronger than you. There is nothing that this can do to overcome the pressure in the chain that you're putting in with your feet. So the technique is to hesitate on the pressure. You need to back off the pressure. You can't stop your feet moving, but stop pushing for a moment to allow the derailleur to move the chain sideways, and then it will drop onto that smaller gear, and then immediately you can start pedaling again. This is much like shifting a standard transmission car, where you have to push in the clutch to unload all the drivetrain parts and give them a chance to engage with another group of gears. When you find yourself needing to do that, you need to dig deep, put a little boost of power, a little re-acceleration or increased acceleration as you're going up the hill, then stop pushing, shift, and then push again. And finally, the urban myth. I don't know where the origin is, though I think it may be a holdover from back in the days of internally geared 3-speed hubs. But I hear over and over again, do I need to be coasting while I'm shifting, or should I be back pedaling while I'm shifting? And the answer is no. All the mechanisms, the derailleurs, the chain down here are designed to only work properly when you're pedaling forward. When you're coasting, parts will move, but the chain can't engage into one of the alternative gears. If you're actively backpedaling, you can actually cause the chain to get jammed up in parts, and I've seen bicycles come in that were damaged because they were being backpedaled while shifting. So always, when you're shifting the bike, make sure your feet are moving in a forward pedaling direction, and as I mentioned earlier, make sure that you relax the pressure on things a little bit before you ask for the shift, and your shifting should be smooth and clean and crisp.